Well, hey everybody, it's Outland. How's it going? And I have a very special guest with me tonight. I've been really looking forward to trying to get this person on to chat with her about some things, and finally made it happen. So I'm super excited. So tonight with me, I have Erin Sherrets, and she's the Outdoor Recreation Program Manager at Wright State University right here in Dayton, Ohio. And we're going to be talking about Leave No Trace and kind of chatting about some of that stuff. So Erin, welcome.
Thanks, Lance. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, I'm glad you're able to make it. We've been trying to do this for a while now.
Yes, things just keep getting in the way, but here we are.
Yeah. So why don't you tell us about yourself, who you are, what you do, things like that?
I work for Wright State University. I oversee our outdoor recreation program. So we have trips, we go backpacking, kayaking, rock climbing, caving, anything outdoors you can imagine, we do. Train students to lead those trips and take other students all over the United States. We have a challenge course, we have a rock climbing wall, equipment rental. We do lots of things at our program. So I've been there full time for a little over 3 years now. Prior to that, I worked at an outfitters. I was guiding backpacking trips, teaching kayaking. I have previous experience at park districts, working in outdoor education programs. So my focus has always been to educate and create some skills for people to be out in the outdoors.
That's awesome. So what's your favorite outdoor activity?
Oh gosh. I love what I do the most is probably run, but I love being in the woods, backpacking. I love cycling. I love kayaking, stand-up paddleboarding. Oh my gosh, it's hard to pick.
It is. So you were a guide. So, where did you guide trips?
Yeah, so I guided trips all over. We went to a lot, Dolly Sods, Red River Gorge. We did lots of local state parks around Ohio, the Grand Canyon, Boundary Waters. Yeah, several places.
Wow, so you've seen some places. Yeah, that's awesome. So you've been outdoors like your whole life then, pretty much?
I went to like nature camps in the summertime growing up, but my family, we didn't necessarily go camping, right? So I'd been once or twice with family, but I was more introduced to it when I was an adult.
Oh, okay. Well, that's awesome. So, and you just got engaged outside, right? Is that right?
I did, yes.
Okay,
I got in,
congratulations.
thank you. Yes, it was actually in Dayton. We went on a run on the Great Miami River Trail, in between Eastwood and Riverscape. So it
That's
happened in
awesome.
between there. Yeah.
Wow, that's cool. So, so your fiance likes the outdoors too, right? So that's a good thing.
Yeah, not as much as I do, but he
Okay,
likes it. Yes, he enjoys it.
that's good. That's good. It's definitely good to be with somebody who likes doing what you do.
Of course.
So what's uh, what's your favorite place to be outside?
Um, so my favorite place I've ever been is Yellowstone. And the touristy parts are amazing, but the backcountry Yellowstone is what is just phenomenal. So many different types of wildlife out there. It's gorgeous. But I also really love our metro parks here in the Dayton area. Um, it's such a treasure to have all these metro parks near a city. And not be completely overcrowded by people. And so there's so much beauty and peace in our metro parks. I'm at Huffman Metro Park probably the most just because I'm
Okay.
nearby, but
Yeah.
I love Eastwood, Taylorsville, all the different parks around here.
Yeah, I'm up here in Heber, so I go to Taylorsville a lot, and go
Great.
Carriage Hill too. So, and I'm
Oh,
about
Carriage
a
Hill is great.
yeah, and I'm about a mile from the bike trail, so I can just hop on the bike trail and do some pretty cool bike rides and stuff. So yeah, that's awesome. Do you have
That's
any
great.
bucket list locations? Any place that you just have to get
Oh,
to?
yes. I don't know if at the Adventure Summit you listened to Grandma Joy and Brad Ryan.
Mm-mm.
They were the people who were trying to do all of the national parks in the United States. They've done 62 out of 63, and their Alaska national parks were amazing. And so that is now the next thing I want to do is I want to go to Alaska and do some hiking and exploring over there.
Oh man, yeah. I've been to Alaska, but I didn't get to really do any hiking when I was there. I was there for a work trip many years
Oh,
ago,
great.
and I
Where's
got
your
to
bucket list?
my bucket list. I think, oh gosh, I think Glacier is my big bucket
Mm.
list item right now. Um, Yellowstone is my, or not Yellowstone, I'm sorry, Yosemite is my favorite national park so far. But yeah, I think Glacier's the one I really want to get to. But yeah, I mean, there's so many to choose from. You know, it's like, man, I could just spend a whole lifetime exploring these places.
Oh, absolutely. There's so many options.
Yeah, and if you haven't been to Yosemite, that place is amazing.
So how did you get there without the crowds? Was that an issue for you?
Yeah, it was. It was like Disneyland pretty much. But even with the crowds, you know, you can find some places with solitude and things.
Mm.
I did a hike in the Sequoia part. I forget what it's called, but the Mariposa Grove area down the southern part of Yosemite, and there was hardly anybody out there that day. It was a weekday. You know, I was hiking out there. I was like, oh man, this is great.
Wow,
Yeah,
that
it was
sounds great.
cool. Yeah, and it's like you said, the wildlife out west is crazy. You don't see that kind of stuff necessarily around here. You know, it's
Not at all.
yeah. Because I on that specific trip, I actually saw mountain lions
Oh
in the wild.
my. Oh
Yep.
no.
Yeah. It was a year they were having really bad fires, so I guess they migrated south from where the fires were into the park, and so it was a mom and two cubs, and they were. It was just all I saw was like a blur. I saw like the back end of a tail, but it like they jumped over this log, and I mean it was a huge log. It was a sequoia tree log, so it was this huge log, and they just jumped over it in one jump, and I was like, what was that?
Oh my.
I thought it was just my eyes playing tricks on me, and then I these two women were hiking in front of me, and they had stopped and waited for me to catch up with them, and they were like, I said, "Did you happen to see a mountain lion?" And they were like, yeah, we happened to see three of them," and I was like, "What?" So we ended up like hiking together the rest of that trip. So. Um,
Probably intelligent move.
Yeah, but it was amazing because we ran into a ranger and we said, "Hey, we saw mountain lions out on the train." He's like, "I've worked here for 40 years and I've never seen a mountain lion ever." And he's like, "How long you been here?" I was like, "A day." It was like a once in a lifetime thing that I just love telling people that story because nobody believes me because I had my camera on and I missed it, didn't get him on film, so nobody believes that I saw this, but I really did.
Wow, that's incredible.
Yeah, it was awesome. So yeah, I highly recommend Yosemite if you ever get the chance to go out
Great.
there. It's awesome.
That's good to know.
Yeah. So let's switch to the LNT discussion. So this past summer, I had the chance to go to a LNT trainer course that you taught at Germantown Metro Park, and that was awesome. It was a really cool course. So just for the people watching, I was thinking, can you maybe explain for people who might not know what Leave No Trace is and what the philosophy is behind it?
Of course. And I'm glad you had a good time. I also had fun. And we had a beautiful campsite
Yeah, we did.
at Shrimps Hollow. Oh my gosh, what an amazing spot. Yeah, so Leave No Trace is a set of ethics for people who are looking to be in the outdoors. So, different types of ways to respect their surroundings, respect others, and treat nature and Mother Earth appropriately and appreciate her presence without leaving anything behind. So, just like Leave No Trace, you leave nothing but your footprints out in the backcountry. So, Leave No Trace is basically what it says, leave no trace. The big philosophy behind it is be like Bigfoot. Bigfoot, we don't know he was there. We can never find him. So we want to go into the outdoors and into nature and be like Bigfoot and leave no trace behind.
How did you get interested in Leave No Trace?
So I got interested in Leave No Trace because I learned 9 out of 10 people who enter into the outdoors are not equipped with Leave No Trace knowledge. And it was astounding the things that I was witnessing. People stomping on plants, leaving trash in trails, um, cutting down live trees, right? So a lot of it is people just don't know any better. It's not intentionally, hurting our environment. So I wanted to get more into it so I could be better educate people into how to responsibly recreate in the outdoors, and how to have those difficult conversations. We can talk, later along about authority of the resource, but a different way to how to approach people with education focus and not discipline.
Yeah. Yeah. I know exactly what you're saying because I end up preaching it in every video because when I ever go on, I go on trips like backpacking and because I witness something on every single trip that I go on. And a lot of times it's just really blatant things like you were saying, like especially Red River Gorge is really bad. People just cutting down trees, making their own trails. The last time I was there, I had to put out like one or two campfires that people just left smoldering. And I'm just like, do people really think that this is okay? Like you said, some people just don't even think about it. It just doesn't even, but, and there's the really blatant things, right? There's the, spray painting on rocks, it's like, well, obviously, that's got to be wrong, right? I mean, most people would surmise that that's not the right thing. But then there's more subtle things, like you said, like, staying on the trail, not stepping on certain plants, and not moving rocks around. That's a real popular thing too. People making cairns and stacking rocks, and oh, it's just an innocent stack these rocks in the river. Who cares? It's not harming anybody or anything. But it really is. It's you're changing the ecosystem of all these animals that live under rocks, and you're altering the environment that you're in.
Yeah, one of my favorite lessons to teach is about litter. And so many people think that they can just throw their apple core onto the trail or their banana peel or their peanut shells because it's natural, right? It's nature. It was grown in the outdoors, so it belongs there. But a lot of times those things are not native to the area and can really affect the ecosystems, the soil. It can harm the animals in the area. There's just like this ripple effect of things that can happen just from introducing non-native things into the area. So that's one of the bigger ones that I see people being very
Yeah.
shocked about, is they can't throw their peanut shells on the ground.
Yeah, that was a big one when you brought that up in our trainer course. I was like, oh, I never really thought of it. And I'm sure I've been guilty of throwing an apple core like on a hike or something. Like, oh, it'll just decompose. It's fine. It's natural. And but you're right. It's like it's not necessarily natural. Oranges don't grow in Ohio, so just throwing orange peels down is and we did an exercise. I think how long it took for some of those things to decompose, and it was a pretty long time. And I was just like, I was amazed. I was like, wow, I never thought of that. So yeah,
Yeah, you never think about what happens in the time that it decomposes.
right. And the other exercise we did, the different things that take certain periods of time to decompose. Like, so you think about litter, you think piece of paper. It's comes from trees. So when it decompose fast, but it takes a while. It takes a long time for the stuff to decompose. Glass takes what, a million years or something. I forget how long. It's like ridiculous. So don't throw glass anything out in the woods. Just take it with you.
Gosh, and I see a lot of glass. I don't know if you see it, but in fire pits, there's so
Yes.
many people try to burn glass and it just stays there over and over.
I don't. I think people kind of see fire pits as their natural trash can or something. They just think, oh, if I put it in there, it's fine. It doesn't matter. But you see cans and just every foil, all kinds of things that just
Hmm.
don't burn or don't burn
Gosh.
well. Plastics, which is really bad.
And it's funny you bring up Red River Gorge. I have been there, heading to Indian Staircase. I don't remember the trail exactly what it's called, but every half a mile there was a beer can, and
Mm-hmm.
you get to the top of a Indian Staircase, and there is a 30 case of Natty Light, an empty box just sitting on top. So people were
Yeah.
drinking and throwing it along the trail, and I was with friends and we just picked it up.
Yeah.
And that's just one of the things that you can do, a small thing to give back, is
Yeah.
just pick up a little bit of trash. It's not that heavy.
Yeah, I always try to take a larger than normal plastic bag for trash. And if I find some stuff, I take it out. And I always end up taking something out of Red River Gorge. And it's usually because I'm at a fairly established campsite. So, and I find a lot of stuff like, ropes, tie down things from tents, plastic, plastic clips and stuff like that. And that stuff's real light, real easy to take out. Some of the other stuff is sometimes it's not that easy to take out. It's like, wow, okay, how do I get this out of here? But yeah, it's just, man, it's, and people go there to party a lot. It's such a beautiful place, and it's like, why would you want to wreck this beautiful place? I just don't get it at all. Sad.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, one of my favorite spots. It was kind of an unknown area. The last time I went up there, almost there's a grouping of different sites that you can, there's places you can hang hammocks, there's places you can put tents, and there must have been a circle of about 10 or 15 trees that had just been cut down. These were live, living trees, and I'm like, what are people doing? You can't even use that for firewood because it's too green. It's not going to burn. What are people doing just cutting these trees down? So it just boggles my mind.
Gosh. Yeah. And you're a hammock camper, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So
Yeah,
those could have
probably.
been prime hammock camping trees.
Yeah. I'm like, oh man, I could have slept right there. Yeah. I don't know. It's just, sometimes it's just, like you said, educating people, but sometimes it's like, oh, do I want to confront this person? It's like, I guess you got to pick your battles a little bit.
Yeah, so that's a big thing with Leave No Trace, and a conversation that we had in our trainer course is to how to approach situations like this. So authority of the resource is you think about um, someone who's like a ranger who has ultimate authority of the area, and we kind of expect them to take advantage and make sure that people are following the guidelines of each park. But in reality, they're not seeing this. It's the people who are out, right next to a campsite who are seeing this. So that is authority of the agency. So a ranger would have the authority because they are the person representing the area, where we and Leave No Trace look at authority of the resource, us as in outdoor users being in the outdoors, educating people. So there is a philosophy of approaching someone, right? You don't just walk up to someone and say, you shouldn't be cutting down trees. That's not allowed here. It's all about understanding another perspective, that these people might not understand that this is not something that we typically suggest into the backcountry or in the outdoors. And starting off with small talk conversation and focusing on educating and not asking people not to do things, but explaining why it might not be the best idea. So that's always something people can adopt and understand. It's hard. You don't want to have that conversation. So getting that practice ahead of time is always good, which is what we did in our trainer class. Is we practiced having that conversation, those difficult conversations.
Yeah, and that was even kind of hard with people So, yeah, but the strangers could be different too.
Yeah, and the most conversations I've had is using too big of logs. So you always, if you're want something that's smaller than your forearms, and I've seen people just do giant fires where it could start a fire. That's one of the bigger ones that I've seen. It's been a little scary on the scary side that it might cause a fire. Kind of on the higher end of the scariness of what not following Leave No Trace guidelines can happen. Have you seen some blatantly obvious scary lack of Leave No Trace?
Probably just the people leaving the fires unattended. Just that one scared me because that time that I actually did find that fire unattended in the gorge, there was a wildfire down there that it was on the other side of the gorge, but where we were on Indian Staircase, and we could see the smoke from the fire, and I was like, oh, I think it was July or August or something. It was a dry time of the year,
I
but it was
think I
just like,
saw you post on Instagram about that. Did you
yeah,
post on there? Okay,
yeah,
yeah, I remember
probably.
that. Hmm.
Yeah. Yeah, but that was, but that's a good point though, because I never really thought about that when you talked about only gathering as much wood as you need for, as you burn, instead of getting huge piles of wood that you're not necessarily going to burn, just have a nice sizable amount, and I actually practiced that the last time I was there, and I was like, wow, this really works well.
Yeah, so we talk about the 4Ds: down, dingy, dead, and dry. So always have your firewood, the 4Ds.
Yeah. Yeah, that's that, wrist size. It really is perfect, especially when you're out in the backcountry. You don't need huge logs, like you said. You're not gonna be up all night. You're not out there to, unless you're trying to survive. You don't need that kind of stuff. So we went over in our trading course the 7 principles, right? So there's 7 leave no trace principles, and I'm not going to go through them all, but it was really cool how we learned them through hand signals. So, what do you think is the most important of the 7 leave no trace principles?
Oh gosh, yeah. So that's a great question. I would probably say minimizing campfire impacts and
Mm-hmm.
respecting wildlife are pretty, in terms of safety, important. Right? We had already had this discussion about minimizing campfire impacts, but respecting wildlife, if we're approaching animals at an unsafe distance, they could become familiarized with humans, which is dangerous. They could be so familiar with us that they would attack more often, or be more likely to attack, or they would get um, familiarized with human food. And if they are associating humans and food together, they're more likely to get frustrated if you're not giving them food, and then they'll attack you for it. So making sure that we're respecting that we are in these animals' homes, we are the visitors. The wildlife, it's their home. So I'd probably say those two are pretty important. And I can do all the hand signals if you'd like me to show everybody.
Yeah, Aaron, you show everybody the hand signals.
Yeah. Okay. So we're going to go over the 7 principles of Leave No Trace. Leave No Trace is very broad. Again, a set of ethics. They're guidelines. They're not right or wrong. They are a set of ethics that you make the choice of what you think is appropriate. So first is plan ahead and prepare. So number 1, and to remember this, we have our little notebook here, and we have our 1, and we have plan ahead and prepare. And number 2, we have travel and camp on durable surfaces.
I like that one.
Number 3, we have dispose of waste properly. So if you've ever had to use a trowel to dig your cat hole, dispose of waste properly. We have number 4, leave what you find. Number 5, minimize campfire impacts. 6, respect wildlife. Supposed to be like a moose. And 7, we have be considerate of other visitors. So we have a little peace sign and we're waving. So those are all the general principles behind Leave No Trace. Planning ahead and preparing is all about preparing ahead of time to make sure that you don't make any mistakes that could impact your safety, other people's safety, or hurt the ecosystem around. Travel and camp on durable surfaces is a common one that we see, that you mentioned earlier, Lance, about social trails, about people walking around the mud or finding a cool spot and creating their own trail by overuse over and over again. And so making sure that we stay on the trail. And a lot of times, there's going to be a big muddy spot. You do not want to step in it. But if you planned ahead and prepared, maybe you had a nice set of boots or gaiters to be able to walk through that mud. So you're not expanding the trail or creating a new one.
Right.
We also want to camp on our durable surfaces. Don't want to camp on any sort of wildflowers, always somewhere a nice flat surface. Dispose of waste properly really goes over just pack it in, pack it out, where you dispose of all of your waste appropriately, understanding the guidelines of where to use the bathroom, 200 feet away from a water source and away from a trail. Leave what you find. Of course, if you love something and you take it, no one has the opportunity to see that as well. So we always want to leave what we find. There's one anecdote about the Grand Canyon. There's so many visitors in the Grand Canyon. If each person who visited the Grand Canyon took a single rock, the canyon would cease to exist. So we want to make sure, I know that's a fun thing to do, is take these rocks, but over time it does make an effect. It does affect the area.
Yeah.
Minimize campfire impacts, like we talked about before. Only creating fires when absolutely necessary is going to be like the higher, more strict end of the spectrum of leave no trace. But a lot of times the most accessible and attainable is just sticking to fire pits in places that have already made a fire. Respecting wildlife, we want to make sure that again, that we're giving them their space. There's a good trick is you put your thumb out, and if they are bigger than your thumb, you are too close.
That's a good one. I did not know that one before.
Yeah, that's a great, yeah. I did that in Yellowstone with all the bison. They were very close. I couldn't help it when I was in my car, but they just kind of surrounded us, but I tried. And then being considerate of other visitors, just knowing that this space is for everybody. Some people go out in the outdoors for different reasons, and respecting that, they have their space and they have a right to be there as well, are going to be the best ones. So plan ahead and prepare, travel and camp on durable surfaces, dispose of waste properly, leave what you find, minimize campfire impacts, respect wildlife, and be considerate of other visitors.
And we did those hand signals a lot.
For a bunch of adults, yes, we did a lot of hand signals.
Well, that's the thing. What's great about it, it's good for kids, good for adults. It gives you that visual image of, associating with each principle. I think it's great. I didn't forget them. I wanted you to do it.
Of course, yes. And I actually learned that from one of my students who had learned it through Boy Scouts. So
really?
Yeah. So Mason, who was my co-instructor, actually taught me those.
That's great. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah, the hand signals just seal it. It's great. Do you think there are any principles that are missing? Do you think there's anything that maybe they need to add to the principle, maybe an eighth principle?
Yeah, so, I think our principles are so broad that most things could really fit into those. That it would be great if there was another, like, furthering education one of, sharing what you've learned through Leave No Trace is like an eighth principle of giving back by spreading knowledge. I think maybe would be a great one to add.
That is a good one. Yeah. Why do you think LNT's become so important in the last few years? Seems like it's really become just very necessary.
Because so many people are outdoors.
Yeah.
People love, it's so necessary. If you think about how much we're on our computers these days and on our phones. Someone told me today, or maybe it was yesterday, that the average youth, someone learned this from Jonathan's presentation. The average youth spends 7 minutes outside a day.
Yeah.
And it's just so sad. But I think that we're moving past that. I think we've gone into this world of very digital, but we are seeing that we need more than that. And so people are really focusing on getting outdoors again. So it's really important to share this knowledge, because people are entering into these spaces that a lot of times it's like, oh, I'm just going on a hike, or, oh, I'm just going on a kayak ride, a paddle. And it seems like an innocent, easy thing to do, but things can happen very quickly. So we want to make sure there's knowledge heading into those spaces.
Yeah, I know COVID actually helped get a lot of people outside, which was good to be able to get people out, but it also was kind of a bad thing because all of a sudden you have all these people who don't necessarily think about what they're doing when they're out there, and just creating a lot more trash, a lot more people, people stuff, a lot more noise. And I remember, gosh, at the height of it, Hocking Hills was, they had to close the park because there was so many people going there, and they were worried about COVID being, still transmissible and everything. And it was just like, wow. I mean, I was excited. I was like, man, it's cool. All these people want to get out, but all these people are getting out.
Oh my gosh. So I was living in Columbus at the time that COVID had started, and we were all at home. And I remember going out into the bike path, something I did pretty much every day.
Yeah.
And it looked like The Walking Dead. Like there was just people everywhere.
Oh my gosh.
And at that time we didn't really know anything about COVID. So it was spooky that there were
Yeah.
so many people outside, but that's what everyone chose to do. That's what they needed. They were like, I am so stressed. Like I need to find an outlet. And the outdoors is that for so many people. And I really think our time during COVID has reintroduced that to a lot of people. And then also people have learned that being outside is necessary.
Yeah, I think that's a good point. It's like, we were kind of forced into it because everything was digital. Those who could work from home, everybody was always, I still am. I work 100% remote right now. So every meeting is a Zoom meeting like this. And this is how I talk to people. I don't, so I really want to get outside a lot more, which I haven't much lately. But, as the weather gets better and stuff like that, it's like, I've got to get out. So I think people realize, it's like, okay, I got to get away from this computer or whatever. And then they go out and they're like, oh, I forgot that I really enjoyed this. This is awesome. So yeah, I think it was a kind of a great awakening for a lot of people, which is awesome. It just got to remember that it's we got to take care of these areas. Like I said whenever I do my videos, I always end up at least once or twice doing a preaching about LNT in some way, because it's always something, and it's usually something big, like I'll be hiking next to a rock face and I'll be like, wow, there's carvings all over that, and I get so mad, I go off on a rant. But the last time somebody left their dog's poop bag just sitting by the trail. And maybe they were going to come pick it up when they were done, but I don't know. But it was sitting there when I walked by. So that's kind of grosses me out. I have dogs, but whatever. And I'm just like, oh, that's just why, it's just stuff like that really makes you think. It's like, man, think about others, you're kind of messing up my experience, by leaving that sitting there. So
yeah, and it's interesting, especially like dog poop, because they're eating such processed food, what they're introducing into the environment is very different and more effective to the ecosystem than human waste, just because of their diet is different. And a lot of house dogs are not native to those ecosystems, so they definitely contribute poorly to the areas.
Yeah, I never thought about that. Geez. So, do you think that social media plays a big role in the need for LNT awareness? Do you think it's, I didn't even know this, but there are actual social media principles. There are 4 of them. I didn't even know they existed until I started looking online. Do you know these 4 social media principles?
Not off the top of my head. You're welcome to share them.
Okay, so one is tag your photos thoughtfully, which makes sense. Consider the implications of sharing popular trails that see a lot of use. So that is something I've thought about. It's like when I'm doing an Instagram post, maybe not necessarily post the exact coordinates of that waterfall that I'm at, but hey, I'm in Red River Gorge, and you got to come here and find it yourself if you want to see it. It's something to think about. Be mindful of the images you share. What story your photo is telling? Is it sharing positive behavior? So I know a story from a while back. Some kids did what were they were destroying some hoodoos out west somewhere or something. They were putting it all on social media. I don't know if you remember that, but they were destroying these, millions of years old pieces, rock formations, and you can't put those back together. Once they're gone, they're gone. So it's just heart wrenching. The
Yeah, and
third,
that was a big conversation that we had at our Leave No Trace course, this
mm-hmm,
digital social media.
yeah, the third one is give back, help the organizations and causes that can help trails in the outdoors. Consider giving back by volunteering or looking into stewardship opportunities. I like that one. And then encourage leave no trace ethics. So maybe that's that number 8 right there. Talk about and show the benefits of keeping the outdoors and trails in good condition by picking up trash and considering the LNT principles. Note, it's better to lead by example rather than to call out other hikers. So yeah, I thought those were interesting. I didn't even know those were out there, but it makes sense because social media is just such a huge part of almost everyone's lives. Um, I do a lot of photographs when I'm out there Instagramming, YouTubing. It's like, I want to make sure that I'm setting a good example when I'm out here. So, I'm sure in some of my older videos when I didn't really think about things like, man, I don't know if I showed people the right way to start a fire, or always like the big stuff. I'm like, hey, carry out your trash, this and that. But some of the other things, it's like, man, got to think about all that stuff.
Yeah, of course. I think social media is an interesting avenue, right, to share
Mm-hmm.
your experience. One of the more dangerous things about social media is what you're posting makes it seem so accessible. And
Mm-hmm.
so people see this beautiful waterfall that you might have hiked 20 miles and had to orienteer off trail to get to. And people are like, oh, I want to do that. And they see where you tagged it and they don't do any research. They don't have any backcountry skills. They don't have any map and compass skills. They don't know about the 10 essentials, what to bring on every hike, and things could go horribly wrong.
Right.
Not only to them if they didn't plan ahead and prepare, but like, so say they would have to go off trail and they're trampling on some other plants, or they disturbed animals' homes. So many negative things could happen by posting something that an exact location.
Yeah.
So I think what Leave No Trace likes to suggest is if you must tag a location, that it be like a general area. And this makes it less accessible. And if you have a friend who's like, hey, I would love to do that, could you tell me more? You have the opportunity to share with them your experience and any sort of skills that they may have. Because on the flip side, if you're just posting to the public, someone sees that and they decide to do it, you have no idea that you had just influenced this person. And instead, by like a private message, you have some more power to share those skills and let them know some more information than just here's a picture and here's the
Yeah.
location.
Yeah. Yeah, I think a great example of that, I don't know if it was you I was telling this, someone I was telling this. There's a place in Red River Gorge. It's way off trail, and it's this confluence of these two waterfalls that come, and it's beautiful, gorgeous. These two waterfalls come in from both sides like this. It's real hard to get to. I think it's in the wilderness at part, but people have been there and they've found it. They've tagged it on Instagram. They've tagged the exact location. And I've seen pictures of before and after of what it looked like before. And before it had all these amazing plants. It had some like endangered plants growing in this area. And now it is completely trampled. It's like all the part at the base of the falls are just completely like sand and dirt. Like that many people have been back there to see this amazing site and haven't taken any kind of care. They've trampled all, they probably tried to get really cool shots and photos of the waterfalls, and it's really damaged the area badly. And it's just like, oh my goodness, it'll take forever to
Gosh.
get back the way it was. So yeah, and I know they're taking steps, like for the gorge specifically. They're they're taking steps to limit a lot of this off-trail stuff. A lot of the off-trail sites, you have to have it's going to have a new permit system, I believe, down there to do even backcountry camping. So maybe they can, the Forest Service can limit some of the damage, I hope.
Yeah, one of my bigger pet peeves is seeing people post a sign that says, please do not, go beyond this sign. And like, to be all quirky and funny, they'll post a picture and they'll be out behind the sign doing all that other stuff. I've seen that a lot on social media. And a lot of likes behind it. Like not many people see much wrong with it. It's just funny that they were wild and didn't listen to authority. So,
Yeah.
you mentioned, being a leader. It's easier to be a leader than to correct people when they might be doing something questionable.
Yeah. Yeah. I know there's some trail that's in Hawaii somewhere. They basically they closed it because it was so dangerous. But the big thing is on social media to post yourself hopping over this fence and going up these stairs that are closed and overgrown, and everybody just thinks it's great, but you're not just putting yourself in danger. If somebody has to come rescue you and get you, now you're putting other people in danger. Why? Just for some 10 minutes of fame online. It's just, you have to use your head. I mean, and I know a lot of people don't. That's the problem, especially when you're young and you feel like you're indestructible, but just got to think a little bit.
Yeah, and because I work with college students so often, that's one of the things that we see is they're having a fantastic time. They just don't think it through.
Yeah.
So a lot of times I will just mention it and they're like, oh, I'm so sorry. Like, I didn't realize that. Thank you for correcting me. Right. So like, I've only ever had positive, great experiences because it's all about what you bring to the situation. If you are stalking up to someone angry and accusatory, they're not going to react appropriate. Like, they're not going to be all sunshine and rainbows back to you. They're also going to be negative, accusatory, and defensive because that was how I would have approached them. So just keeping a calm, understanding attitude and focusing on education is really the best way to move forward. But again, in terms of digital social media, someone could see that sign and give a history of why. They could post about the history of why you shouldn't move beyond that sign. And that would educate people more rather than have people think you're funny and dangerous by not listening to the sign.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah. What do you think is the biggest challenge for LNT? We've talked about some of the things, but do you think there's anything else that's just makes it hard to get across to people?
Yeah, I think maybe like the desire to learn more. I think sometimes people just want to be outside to enjoy nature, and sometimes it's dangerous. People with the social media is people post their journeys and people learn about how all these skills online, and then they go out and try to do these. Like, I swear I have several friends who are like, I learned how to backpack from YouTube, and then I got there and I didn't know what I was doing, right? Like, there's only so much you can learn by sitting at a computer. You have to be experiential. You need to be with people who are experienced to share or pass on that guidance as well. So, there's always danger in that as well. And people who just don't really think there's a lot of skill to things. And I say that mostly with paddling, getting into a boat and maybe at a river and go to a whitewater feature and not realize how dangerous those features could be, or how dangerous rivers could be. Paddling especially is something that, like, oh, I'm just got my kayak on a lake and we're gonna have a good time. And yeah, that's great, but so much could go wrong. I remember this one story in New England. There was a few sea kayakers. They weren't wearing life jackets, and one person flipped He didn't know how to do like a deep water reentry. So he told his friends to go ahead, that he was going to swim his boat to shore and get back in and catch up. And they never saw him again. So,
Ugh.
just little things like knowing how important a life jacket is, or staying with a group, really could have mitigated that situation.
Goes back to that plan ahead and prepare, that very first one. Yeah, a lot of people don't, I see that a lot when I'm hiking. It's like, even in the summer, when you can, go a little bit easier and not necessarily have to pack all these warm, cold weather type clothes and stuff. But I see people so unprepared out there on a trail, and I'm, 10 miles in, it's like, a lot could go wrong. Even in Ohio, you're usually not more than a mile from a road, but things could go wrong, and you may not die, but you might be really uncomfortable for a while until somebody can help you.
Yes.
So yeah, it's that planning and preparing part. It's huge. Yeah.
Have you had a terrible experience before?
Personally, I've had a few. Yeah, when I first got back into camping, my friend took me on. It was just a car camping trip. It wasn't even backpacking, but it's before I really knew about the proper clothing and things. I was wearing jeans and like a hoodie like this in November, and it got down to 18 degrees and in sleeted, and it was freezing rain that night, and I had like a 40-degree bag, and a really crummy tent from like the department store, and all my equipment was terrible. I had no idea what I was in for, and if my car hadn't been right there, I went and got my car and slept. And I was like, man, I could have really been in trouble if I was out somewhere, out on a trail somewhere. I could probably have got hypothermia. It was not good. So that really spawned my, okay, I gotta get the right equipment, the right gear, and there's a lot more to it than that, and skills and everything too. But just knowing, don't wear cotton when you're hiking, it's stuff like that. It's like, it's just really important.
Absolutely.
That's what I was going to ask you too. Is there ever a time when it's appropriate? I hate to bring it up, but is there ever a time when you can't necessarily adhere to LNT, or you might need to not? Okay, I can't follow these principles
Yeah.
because of whatever reason.
Yeah. So your safety is a priority. So if for whatever reason you need to cut through a trail, do that. You always want to make sure that you are priority number one and your group is priority number one. Now, you want to plan ahead and prepare so you don't put yourself in that situation, but absolutely you want to make sure that you are safe. And if you have to, not follow best practices, the Mother Nature understands.
Yeah, but always try at least.
Yes, absolutely.
Well, how can people get more involved with LNT? Like how I took a trainer course. What can people do like right now to get involved?
Absolutely. So if you want to go on lnt.org, there is an online awareness course. It's a fun, interactive course just to let you know the basics of Leave No Trace. If you'd like to get even more into Leave No Trace and be eligible to teach awareness courses, you can take a trainer course, which is what you and I did. It's a 16-hour course, preferably overnight. So we did a camp out as well. We go over all of the principles, and you also get experience teaching the principles as well.
That's a lot of
And
fun.
it is fun, yes. One of the more exciting work weeks I've had.
Hmm.
And then the next step after that is a Master Educator course. It's typically a 5-day backcountry course, and you learn how to teach the trainer courses. So easiest thing you can do at this moment, go to lnt.org and take an awareness course. And then there's lots of other great information on the website as well.
Awesome. Well, thank you, Erin. Thank you so much for chatting with me about LNT, and this has been great.
Great. Yeah. Thanks for having me, Lance.
Yeah, I appreciate it. Yeah, I learned a lot. I learned a lot in her course. It was a lot of fun. Erin's a fantastic instructor. made it very clear and understandable. So it was great. So, yeah. So, well, with that, thanks everybody. I appreciate it. And thank you.
Have a great day.
Bye.